Deep State, only on Epix.
Welcome to episode 3 of The Real Public Servants. I am Angelique Crumbly,
And I'm Angela McNerney.
and today we are going to talk about the Deep State. You've just seen a clip of a show on the Deep State at Epix, and let me tell you, TV is not like real life at all. Today, we want to start by thanking all of the dedicated federal employees that have just endured the longest shutdown on record. I believe it is 43 days. We want to let you all know that you are not forgotten, and we know that you wanted to work, you wanted to serve the American people, but were prevented from doing so. And for those who continued to work, we thank you for making the tough choices, and we appreciate your dedication and service throughout. You want to add anything, Angela?
No, I too want to just thank all the federal employees who, again, it was 43 days that to me that have always been, these are unnecessary times, but um, again, you're back at it, and we know January 30th is right around the corner, and we hope that that there isn't another.
Exactly. With that, we're going to dive into our discussion today, which is on the deep state. So, we said in previous podcasts that we have about 70 years of combined federal service. And
Mhm.
so we've had a long time to watch the bureaucracy, as one could say. And so we think that having a topic about the deep state, because it is something that people talk about constantly, and there is this perception, particularly, just across the US, outside of the Beltway, that there is this deep state. And it's something that people need to be really concerned about.
Mhm.
I think what we want to do is start by defining what is the deep state. And a lot of people don't know, but that the term the deep state is a translation of a Turkish phrase. And I am not going to try to
Me
speak
neither.
Turkish. But that term does have its origins in Turkey. And the concept describes a network of unelected officials within the government, along with potentially external actors who are believed to wield significant influence over policy and decision making outside the democratic process. That is the definition, the pure definition of the deep state. Having said that, though, there are, others who view it. And, in the US, I think the term really kind of describes a perceived or hidden network within the US government that supposedly influences policy without formal power. And we see that, and, we've seen that over time and history. And we're seeing it more and more today in terms of something that is talked about consistently. A lot of people think this is a new concept because people
Mhm.
are talking about it more today, but it's not a new concept. And I think that it has gained more emphasis in recent years because of the, shall we say, the split presidency or split terms of the Trump administration. There are many individuals that believed in the first Trump administration that a lot of the policies that they wanted implemented in that administration didn't happen because career people stood in their way, where it could have
Yeah.
really been something more along the lines of they didn't actually understand how the bureaucracy worked. And this is not all of the individuals, but some that were at the top, who literally came into government with the first Trump administration. What I would say, though, is that when we talk historically, the real loss of faith in government we see started during the Vietnam era. And, that was under the administrations of Kennedy, Johnson, and then into Nixon, and then Watergate, of course, you know, was another kind of high water mark of conspiracy theories and things like that. And then we went into the Reagan era, which is, you know, what, about 41 years ago, where he was the first to talk about cleaning up what is known as the quote unquote swamp in DC. And so when you look at it historically, it's not new. But
Right.
we're just seeing a lot of churn about it now. And so we wanted to talk about it from the public servant perspective. So I don't know, Angela, with that, you want
Yeah.
to add anything?
No, I think that's, you know, there's many definitions, I think, and many terms that people use. I think sometimes there's confusion between deep state and deep fakes. But we won't go into that here.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, so you know, I know you had pulled some non-federal
Hmm.
employees or non-civil
I
servants,
did.
and
I
they
did
had a
also.
couple of questions. So why don't we go ahead and start off with those
Okay.
questions?
And right before we go there, I do want to note there is also political conspiracy theories, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
so, you know, whether or not, you know, I guess we want to make the distinction of deep state conspiracy theories and, well, kind of, there are also some crazy things like, you know, lasers and things like that that are out there, Pizzagate. Those kind of things we're really not going to deal with that much
Mhm.
here. So, in looking at some of the questions that we have from the non USG types, we want to kind of go into those, and hopefully, as we answer these
Mhm.
questions, it'll help answer questions you may have on the deep state. So I'll just kind of roll them off. Angela, you want to
Yep.
answer
Yep.
them?
Yeah. Sure.
All right. So, what is the deep state and what is it not?
So again, I think as Angelique said, there's I think there's this perception out there that there's this great hidden network inside the federal government, right? And they're sitting in these rooms at all these federal agencies, you know, these people that are unelected, these bureaucrats that have been around forever because we can't fire them, right? And that they are secretly making or influencing the policy of the administration, that they are overriding, right? They are overriding what is coming from the White House or what is coming from those politicals inside of the agency that the president has appointed. Okay. I never in my 35 years came across this hidden network. Okay.
Hmm.
So, you know, I'm not saying it doesn't exist somewhere or in specific policy um, types of decisions, big events, right? But in my 35 years, I never came across this hidden network of bureaucrats.
Hmm.
Okay. And so, Angelique,
Yeah.
I'll turn it back to you. And again, in the hidden network of both the bureaucrats or others.
Right. 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 And I think that's the key. If you look at the definition, it talks about internal and external experts,
Mhm.
right? Or people. And when I think of the external, I think obviously the military industrial complex, right? And or those contractors that have influence over you know, the government in terms of having, you know,
Mhm.
massive contracts or things like that, you know. Uh, do they have input? Yes, money is power,
Mhm.
and people always
Yep.
have input in that way. But is there, you know, is there some back smoke filled room where people are deciding things?
Yeah.
No, and not that we have seen. And
Right.
I think too, people confuse a lot of what goes on with foreign policy, right?
Mhm.
So if you're talking about what went on in, I don't know, just name a, you know, a country, let's say Congo, right? If the CIA backed a certain group back in the 60s because we were fighting communism, and so we didn't want a leader in a particular country that might lean, toward the communists, or, we could even come closer to Cuba, for example,
Right.
and what went on there.
Hmm.
So, were there things that happen because they're secret and they're national
Hmm.
security? And will we see that no matter the
Hmm.
administration? Yes. But will you see that there are people who are actively working against the government in the civil service, or
Hmm.
so would see in the foreign policy realm, in the fight against communism, you would see the CIA or others maybe backing other politicians that were anti-communists and things like that. Yes, that did happen, but that wasn't part of a deep state. That was part of policies of a particular administration. And while, certain aspects of it are obviously sensitive or secret, that is not something that was running counter to what the administration wanted to do overall. So when you are looking at, are there career people that are, going against the administration policy, that is a rarity. If seen, I've never seen it. If there are one or two people who may not agree with a particular policy,
Hmm.
well, then that's something. But that grand conspiracy of the bureaucracy
Yeah.
is trying to halt something or stop something, you just don't see
Yeah.
that. And so we should not confuse foreign policy and the fact that some of that is secret, and
Right.
decisions are
Exactly.
made. That shouldn't be kind of thrown in to say, oh, well, that's the deep state and that's the bureaucracy. So that's what I would add there.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I would say, I mean, there's the hidden. I think there's right. There's some confusion between what's hidden and what is secret, top secret, what is really national security, and that's really the realm in which a lot of this um, sort of bubbles and boils is in the arena,
Right.
obviously, of intelligence. And so, yeah, again, I in my 35 years never came across the hidden network
No, not at all.
of civil servants.
And
So,
we worked in the foreign
yeah,
policy arena.
yes.
So the next question was, does it really exist in the US government in your experience or knowledge? If so, where? And I think we've said that.
Mhm. Mhm.
We don't believe it exists. But what we do believe is that, or I would say I believe,
Mhm.
and I think you agree with me, Angela, is that when an administration changes, you will find those in the bureaucracy that will, how shall we put it, try to take out others who may have had power with the previous administration because they
Mhm.
want to
Right.
have power.
Right. Yeah.
And so I've seen that, but I see that in the private sector. I see that at the UN. I see that everywhere. It's just
Mhm.
when administration changes, there will be basically a push pull
Right.
for, people
Yeah.
to, the power dynamics are changing. So
Mhm.
you
Yep.
want to be in power when
Yeah, I
you
mean,
may
certainly
not
we
have been.
saw realignments
Hmm.
and some of that, like you said, is that people wanted to reposition themselves
Hmm.
with an incoming, and some of it, honestly, Angelique, right, could have been for policy alignment
Hmm.
reasons
Hmm.
between perhaps um, you know certain
Yes.
certain groups.
Yes.
So yeah,
But
yeah,
most of
certainly.
that was out front and you could
Oh
see it.
yeah, there was
There
nothing
was
hidden.
nothing
There was
hidden
nothing.
about that
Now we tripped across that.
several
Yeah, yeah,
times.
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
I would agree. So,
yeah.
all right. So I think we answered that one. Now, the next question is, if there is something called the deep state, how would someone discover that?
Hmm.
And what happens if someone is really undermining the leadership? And when we talk about leadership, we're talking about the administration that has been elected into power at that time. So,
Hmm. Yep.
Angela, you go for it.
So, one thing here, Angelica, you and um, I never used it, right? But in the foreign affairs arena, there is something called the dissent channel. And this started, back in 1971. Again, this had to do coming out of Vietnam, coming out of Cambodia. And we had foreign affairs officers around the globe who um, wanted to express, right, their concern over these obviously major policy decisions that were happening back in Washington. So in 1971, there was a formal channel for foreign officers, foreign service officers, to basically voice their dissent. Okay, and that came in and came to the Secretary of State, and it came into the Secretary of State. I think, and Angelique, I don't know this because I didn't find it yet, but up until perhaps the 2016, perhaps maybe we had it during 2016 to 2020 as well.
Yes. The
Yes.
Dissent
Okay.
channel. Hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
The Dissent
Yeah.
channel was there pretty active all the way through 2024.
Okay. Okay. So again, this was one, we were asked, what is the formal channels to do that, to basically voice your concern. Again, not hidden. Okay.
Hmm.
Now these cables that would come in, I would say,
But they were anonymous. So you would go in the Dissent channel. It's
okay,
anonymous,
yes, it is
but
anonymous.
not. Hmm.
That's right. But there were some where they actually signed their names, and this
There
was
were
back.
some.
So
Yes.
Nixon went after hard
Hmm.
a whole group. Now they didn't get fired, but there are some that put themselves out there, but it's not hidden, right?
No,
Okay, we get the
that's right.
anonymous part of it.
That's right.
So you have that as a formal way, at least in the foreign affairs community.
Hmm.
Um, you also have, as a civil servant, you can go to your manager, right, your supervisor, and voice your concern with a personally violating, right,
Hmm.
your own religious or other
Right.
reasons that you have,
Well, and we
right?
saw that at USAID. There were people who did not want to do, at least in our experience, did not want to
Hmm.
do contracting for contraceptives because they
That's
did
right.
not believe in
That's right.
contraceptives. And
That's right. And
so
so they
they
asked to
they
be
asked to be
removed from
taken
that.
off that
Yeah,
portfolio.
right.
Hmm.
Right. So they asked for a reassignment.
Hmm.
So there is that way to go about it as well. It is not guaranteed. Okay. They don't have to honor that. One other thing, that's an advantage, I think, in working for the federal government is that the federal government has so many positions in so many professions, right? Across so many missions, right? Different missions. So a federal employee can also choose to leave,
Yes.
right? They can apply for other positions where something else may align with their personal beliefs. Okay. So those are just three ways, Angelique, I
Hmm.
think of, during our time, what we saw with
Right.
regard to those who did have an objection.
Right. And the other part of the question of what happens if someone is really undermining the leadership, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Again, in the government, I always said at various places I worked, if more than two people know something, everybody knows
Yeah.
something. It is hard to
Yeah.
keep a
Yeah.
secret in the
Yeah.
bureaucracy. So if someone were really undermining the administration policy or things like that, it usually came to the fore, and then
Hmm.
decisions could be made. Particularly, let's just say, for example, if you were a career civil servant, you could be repurposed and you might be sitting
Hmm.
in a corner,
Right.
reading books or,
Hmm.
doing
Right.
something, but you're not
Hmm.
going to stay in that position, right?
Hmm.
Once leadership has made a determination that you are undermining them or undercutting
Hmm.
administration policies. And again,
Yeah.
that is something, even if it's one or two, people see it and
Right.
people
Right.
talk about it, and then people will address it, as
Yeah.
far as I can see.
Yeah.
So the fourth question, and it's our last question, is what is the recourse, if any, of a federal employee if they fundamentally disagree with the directives or policies from the leadership? Okay. For example, what if we had a Vietnam War situation now and you're a conscientious objector in the military or otherwise disagree as part of or other parts of the executive branch? And I think it comes back to,
Yeah.
okay, well, the dissent channel is pretty much shut down now. So,
Right.
in real time, what would you do if you're in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that some of those other ways to go about it is to seek a reassignment, if in fact, there's room for that. Um, and if not, some will leave federal service, and we're seeing that today. That some just who fundamentally cannot and align at all and uphold the oath of office, perhaps in some ways. I mean, I'm sure again, we're upholding the oath to uphold the Constitution. Um, but some are going to step away, and I think they'll find some place and return.
Right.
So yeah.
So ultimately, I guess I'd say, in looking at it, when we're talking about the deep state, does it exist? Not that we've seen, not in the way that it is defined as we have seen. Do people have some undue influence who weren't elected?
Hmm.
Yeah, you can see that probably in every administration. I mean, more recently, we've seen that with Elon Musk and not, being elected, but having quite a prominent role where he took significant action as it relates to the bureaucracy. We've seen that in other administrations where there have been people who have not been elected, but who have had significant roles, and so you know they take action. Again,
Hmm.
this is in line with current administration policy, right?
Hmm.
This is not something that I've seen or you've seen
Hmm. Right.
that where it's someone that's out there that's not doing what the administration is asking them to do. So, um, you know, does it really work? Are we being naive and
Hmm.
saying that it isn't there? I think it's just that there's so much that churns with conspiracy theories, with other things like, if we're looking at what's going on with the Epstein situation right now, is that a deep state thing? Well, no, because everybody is well aware of what's happening, right? We know there are files such that we know that the FBI had been working on the Epstein, case since his original prosecution down in Florida. So that would have been what, the early 2000s. So, they then, continued to work on the case, and then they arrested him in 2019. Again, how much of that is going to be made public is a determination of the administration. It is not a
Right.
determination of the deep state, okay, or the bureaucracy. Though those are political decisions that will be made. And so, you just keep hearing about that now. That, oh, the deep state is trying to hold back the files. Well, this is not a deep state moment, at least in the way that deep state is truly
Right.
defined. So, there are certainly other examples we could use beyond that, but I thought since everybody's talking about that this week, we could say, is that an example of a deep state? Or is that really just an example of an administration deciding, yes, I'm going to do this, or no, I'm not going to do this? That's
Right.
really what it
Right.
is.
Right. So as we leave this topic, I think one of those final questions Angelica has, was, so who holds formal power, right? And so I
Mhm,
think in our next episode, I think we're going to go into a conversation, right, about political appointees
mhm.
versus the civil
Career.
servants.
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
so tune in
For
to the
that.
next episode to get some insight into who holds that form of power and how do they use it.
Sounds good. So
All
we'll
right.
catch you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.